Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about a community post I made a little over a week ago, where I asked you guys to submit some questions that I would answer in a future video, a mailbag video, if you will. So, if you guys do like this kind of video, go ahead and hit the like button. It'll let me know to make more of these types of videos. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe, and then also, if you have some questions that you potentially want me to answer in future installments of these videos, go ahead and put those down in the comments section below as well. But we have some questions to go through today, so let's get started. First one from rtristan82, which says, who is going to be the starting running back this season? And for those of you guys who have not seen it, I actually talked about this with John Leonard over at pewterreport.com in a video recently here on the channel. Go back and watch that. But to summarize some of our thoughts here, basically it can be a toss-up between Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, and maybe even Giovanni Bernard. So, to explain, Giovanni Bernard, he is the receiving back, right? That is 100% set in stone. He is going to be the receiving back. Keshawn Vaughn, while it may be harder for him to carve out an immediate role, he's more of the future project type guy, right? He was drafted in the 3rd round. He didn't do much in his rookie season, but he did have some flashes, and then this year, there just isn't necessarily a defined role for him. He may get somewhere in the rotation, but as I said, he's more of a future type of guy. And then you have Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, and the debate between which one of these guys should be starting over the other is going to be a very, very hotly contested debate for pretty much the entire season. Probably even in the regular season, it's going to be something that will be debated as it was last year. So, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, both these guys do basically a lot of things well, right? They're both very good runners, each in their own way. Ronald Jones, he was almost a 1,000-yard rusher, but Leonard Fournette, he was playoff Lenny. He was Lombardi Lenny. You know, he had a great run in the playoffs. So which one do you go with? Well, to summarize what myself and John Ledyard talked about in the previous video, it's essentially basically what they did last year. They could be going with a hot hand type of approach without whichever running back is hot. They'll be getting the opportunity to start a game. If they're not really getting it done, they may switch over to a different running back. Now, if there is a scenario where one guy is just clearly outshining the other, then of course that guy would be the starter. And then we could even see a scenario where the guy who doesn't win that starting job may get traded, may get benched, whatever it may be. Just with the Buccaneers, they have a lot of good running backs, and John Ledyard even said that he theorized that even Giovanni Bernard could potentially get some starting running back snaps if he just continues to impress more and more on the coaching staff, on Tom Brady, and all those other different types of people. So really, it is a toss-up. They could go in so many different directions. I think at the end of the day, the point is that there isn't going to be a clear-cut starting running back. We're going to see some Ronald Jones, we're going to see some Leonard Fournette, we're going to see some Giovanni Bernard, and we'll probably even see a little bit of Keshawn Vaughn as well. In terms of who's potentially going to get the, lion's share of the carries to start, I'm going to say Ronald Jones still. I think the coaching staff still has a lot of trust and faith in Ronald Jones. He was a very good runner for the Buccaneers last year. Again, was almost a 1,000-yard rusher, would have been had he not got hurt. So I think in terms of the immediate sense, who's going to get the most snaps right off the bat, it's probably going to be Ronald Jones, but then we'll see after that. Next question here by Russell French. Do you think we keep Scotty Miller after his rookie contract? I personally feel as if he is really underrated and can be a solid wide receiver too one day. So this is another interesting situation because the Buccaneers, they have so much stinking talent in their wide receiver room right now. You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, Jalen Darden, who the Buccaneers just drafted, and Jaydon Mickens. Those are just 7 guys who you probably assume have a pretty... They're pretty much all 7 of those guys are going to make the team, I believe. And besides maybe Jaydon Mickens if Jalen Darden beats him out for a returner job. But realistically, all 7 of those guys that I just mentioned could make this roster. So in terms of keeping Scotty Miller after his rookie contract, that's tough to say. I don't know if that can happen because right now... They do want to get Chris Godwin on a long-term deal. That has pretty much come out. It's been reported all over the place. They franchise tagged Chris Godwin, but he's still on a 1-year deal. Antonio Brown is on a 1-year deal. Scotty Miller's contract is running up soon, but you still have Tyler Johnson, who's got a couple years left on his deal, and you've got Jalen Darden, who obviously still has his entire rookie contract. So I don't know if they're going to be able to keep Scotty Miller. I think that Scotty Miller, much like what we saw with Adam Humphries after he left the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go join the Tennessee Titans, I could see Scotty Miller going into free agency and getting a lot of good money. And hey, I'm not going to knock him for that. Go get your money, man. But it may be a situation where the Buccaneers can't pay all of these really good wide receivers, you know? They want to keep Chris Godwin on a long-term deal to pair up with Mike Evans. That's understandable, but it may risk losing a guy like Scotty Miller, also potentially losing Antonio Brown if they can't get him on a long-term deal, although he's coming towards the end of his career. So, yeah, overall, while Scotty Miller is great, he is underrated, and I think he could also be a solid wide receiver too, like what Russell French is saying here. You can't pay everybody, especially in that wide receiver room with so much talent. And given they've already kind of come out and explained some of the guys that they want to keep long term, there might just be not enough money to go around to keep a guy like Scotty Miller. Next question here comes from Garrett Washington. Do you think Tom Brady's impact on the organization is sustainable after he retires, or has he influenced enough younger players to keep it going? Or should we get ready for some Schiano/Cutter years after he leaves? Well, this is going to be interesting, and I totally understand where this question's coming from, because after the John Gruden era, I actually just talked about it. You had Raheem Morris and some other coaches that did not do very good things. Josh Freeman didn't pan out as a quarterback. Jameis Winston, he did good, but ultimately did not pan out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, among other things. But I think what's so important, when comparing those two eras is the Buccaneers have their future guy in Kyle Trask, the Trask master, if you will, and he's already sitting and learning behind Tom Brady for potentially the next 2 years. That is huge. That is a huge, huge benefit that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have right now when comparing to the old situation that had happened after John Gruden. Josh Freeman was thrown into the fire, right? He didn't have a guy who he could sit behind and learn behind. They tried to get somebody like that in Jake Plummer, but they didn't do it. They got rid of Jeff Garcia. They didn't bring in Jake Plummer. They just said, okay, well, we took Josh Freeman. Let's just throw him in there and see what happens. They don't have to do that now. They can take a much slower, more well thought out, more well-built approach to the future of their team to sustain that continuity, which is going to be huge. There's also no indication that Bruce Arians is just going to be automatically done when Tom Brady is done. So Kyle Trask is going to have Bruce Arians with him, and probably still a lot of the coaching staff that we see today. Maybe Todd Bowles won't be here. Maybe Byron Leftwich won't be here in the next 2 to 3 years, but still, there's going to be a lot of guys here to help out Kyle Trask and help out the future of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to help keep them a playoff team. And much like what Garrett said here, the younger guys who have now gotten that winning type feeling, they're still going to be here. Mike Evans, probably Chris Godwin, some of the offensive linemen, a lot of the defense in general. Devin White, come on now. I think that in, say, 3 years, 4 years, whenever Tom Brady's done and he leaves, let's say 3 years from now, I think that this team is still going to be a potential playoff caliber team. I think some of the pieces are still going to be there to make some things work. Kyle Trask should be ready to go, in my opinion, and overall, I don't think we will get that post-John Gruden era type vibe that we got in previous years. So, good question there from Garrett. This is the next question from Jim Burry. Who is the best starting quarterback to root for? Josh McCown, Josh Freeman, or Mike Glennon? I loved all three of those guys, each in their own special way. You guys know I'm a big Mike Glennon guy. People still dog me for liking Mike Glennon. It's fine. It's fine. I'm a Glennonite for life. But I did like Josh Freeman. In my opinion, Josh Freeman was a prototypical quarterback in my eyes. Josh Freeman was the guy I would want if I was a head coach in terms of just overall build, right? Big guy, 6'5", 200-something pounds, big arm. That's the type of quarterback I would look for if I was a head coach. I'd want a big, strong guy who's got enough athleticism to make it work and can just have an absolute cannon of an arm. I just love quarterbacks like that. So I was a big fan of Josh Freeman. I like Mike Glennon. Josh McCown, I thought, was just a solid, relaxed veteran who could really stabilize a locker room. So I was a big fan of all three of those guys personally. We're not going to go ahead and read Scott's question here. It said, if you had to figure out who's going to make the final roster cuts and who's going to be waived and brought back on reserves, And do you see us trading anybody to another team for additional draft picks or for a different player? Scott, I appreciate your question, man, but I'm actually going to save that for a future video whenever I talk about, 53-man roster predictions and things like that. But I thank you for that question, Scott. David RN says, how much playing time do you think Joe Tryon will get this season, and what impact do you think he will have? So I talked about this a little bit on the channel in terms of Joe Tryon, what to expect in his rookie year. If Joe Tryon has a 6.5 sack season, that's a good year in my opinion. I think he's going to be that third rotational pass rusher. He's going to be in on, a decent chunk of defensive snaps, maybe like 50% for the season, let's say that, just in terms of rotating in. Of course, Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett, they don't want to come off the field, but to get Joe Tryon some reps, I think they will make that exception. So overall, Tryon, he's going to be that third rotational pass rusher. I think he will have a pretty decent impact in his rookie season, getting 6 sacks, 6.5 sacks. I think that'd be great. If you want to be, on the lower end, let's say 4.5 to 5 sacks. Overall, that's what I think his range is 4.5 sacks to 6.5 sacks for his rookie year, and I think he'll be a solid rotational pass rusher. Finally, last question here from Sean Lynch. What's your favorite current Buck player and all-time Buck player? So, for my current favorite Tampa Bay Buccaneer right now, it's Mike Evans. I mean, I love Mike Evans. He's absolutely phenomenal. And I know everybody's going to say, why didn't you say Tom Brady? Well, look, I love Tom Brady too, but Mike Evans, man, Mike Evans is a beast. I love Mike Evans. I love a lot of players on this team. I love every player on this team, guys. You know this. I'm the ultimate optimistic person. But Mike Evans, I mean, he's just phenomenal. He really is. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Mike Evans. Ever since we drafted him, I thought he was going to be good, and he's been absolutely wonderful. In terms of all-time favorite Buck player, that's a tough one. There's a lot of good options. I'm always going to support Leroy Selmon just for being the first face of the franchise. That means a lot for me because I am kind of a history buff in regards to that. I gotta love guys like Rondé Barber and Derek Brooks, and even Sapp. Sapp can be a little bristled sometimes in terms of his personality, but I love all those guys who helped the Buccaneers win a Super Bowl back in the early 2000s. And yeah, that's a tough one. If I had to pick, I'd probably have to say maybe Rondé Barber or Derek Brooks would be one of those two guys. Leroy Selmon also in there as well. So, with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you guys have any types of questions, let me know down in the comments section below, and they may get mentioned in a future video. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you're new, go ahead and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed, and we will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.